So on this panel, I'm excited to speak about how to scale AI across the enterprise. And it's great to have also not only Munich Re, who was speaking just now, but also MJ, also from Roche. Would say they're on similar journeys. Maybe they don't call their green belts or black belts that, but I think the journeys are very similar. So maybe before we kick off, just a quick introduction of each of you.
So Anastasia, obviously, I delivered the keynote this morning. I do three things in life. I sit on corporate boards, and usually I chair technology and innovation committee on those boards. I am professor for AI and cybersecurity in Innsbruck right now, but I am actually exiting my professorship because I am launching a business in Lucerne in Switzerland, which will edutain kids and clever parents about AI. So I developed the concept of currently 5 books. You can imagine Winnie the Pooh or Moomins, and those books tell stories about AI in the most entertaining way. The first book, Romy and Robbie and the Secrets of Sleep, will be announced on the 31st of December for pre-orders and will be delivered on the 1st of November. By the way, it's written without Gen AI. And
Real person?
Illustrated without Gen AI. It's completely analog production for highly entertaining and amusing content. And when I do pre-reads for group, actually a lot of people are asking me, could we have this for adults?
We might use it. Perfect. Thank you so much, Anastasia. MJ.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Mohammad Jawad, also known as MJ. So I'm a data science lead. I'm leading a global team of exceptional talents in data science. And I'm also a data scientist by education. So I'm working for Roche. And my job is to build data science capabilities for the organization and essentially training the next generation of data scientists for healthcare. Happy to be with you today.
Perfect. And Kurt, just in case some people did miss this.
Sure. Yeah, so hello everybody. My name is Kurt Mumel. I am a strategic advisor at Dataiku. I've been with Dataiku for 9 out of the 10 years that Dataiku has been around, doing a variety of different roles, always working with our customers, and now working with our executive leaders on our strategy, our messaging, and still engaging with some of our biggest and favorite customers as well. So always a pleasure to be here.
Perfect. Okay. So I thought I'd do something fun to start us off. It's going to be a challenge, maybe. So can you, in 7 words or less, explain what AI, how to scale AI? 7 words. I will count.
I'll give it a try. I think it's not 7, but
okay.
Okay. I would say Gen AI will not replace domain knowledge, but we have to combine them smartly.
That was a sentence. So I would say pilot environment or piloting environment, democratization, simplification, humility and openness, diversity, and actually learning from the open source.
Okay, I think it's my turn. So it's an everyday AI event. So for me, scaling up means everyone uses AI every day.
Very good.
I love it.
Yeah. And I'll do the 7-word summary of my presentation from earlier today. Build bridges to create a common standard. Build bridges to create a common standard. There
Perfect.
we go.
Good with words, Kurt, you are. Okay, so MJ, we haven't heard you speak yet. We will shortly. Tell us a little bit about how Roche is tracking that value, quantifying that value, and using it for their business case to scale AI at the end of the day.
Sure. So it's actually a very, very good question. Measuring the value and the impact that is generated by AI is something that I believe everyone should work on. And the way that we do it at Roche is that, especially in the beginning, we always start by a hypothetical business case calculation. And especially, when you have so many use cases that you need to work on, and of course you have limited capacity, you need to prioritize things. And one thing which we do is always try to come up with a business case for each of the use cases. And then the hypothetical one is something, but measuring the real value that is generated is something different. So once you have the application in production, then you basically try to quantify, like, in terms of, I don't know, could be like a financial or non-financial metrics. But the other thing which I would like to emphasize as well is that, especially for the programs that aim in scaling up the AI-based technologies, there are quantifiable measures that you can take into account, such as the number of active users, the number of use cases in production, platform usage, and trainings that have been completed. So these are the things that are practically can be used in order to keep track of the progress and the value that is created thanks to the AI.
Makes sense. Actually, Andres, just to maybe add quickly, since these journeys are somewhat similar, would you have anything to add or see things differently that you guys are doing at Munich Re?
No, I think, as you just said, I think it's really not only about doing good things, but also talking about it, and finding ways how to measure success. I have also talked a little bit about valuable use cases, and in the end, there are different ways of measuring it. There are hard facts, of course, in terms of bottom or top line result, but there are also soft facts, in terms of how good is the adoption, how many users are satisfied with a related software and a tool. And I think this is also what we have to take into account.
Yeah. And Andres, you spoke about scaling advanced analytics. What do you see maybe as the differences and the challenges between scaling advanced analytics through Munich Re and scaling AI through Munich Re?
Yeah. So in the end, I think it's two sides of the same coin. Yeah. So I think you have similar success factors. In the end, it's about also creating really an easy access to the tool. It's about creating transparency in terms of demystifying what all this methodology is about, explaining what Gen AI is in the end, and also a little bit about creating trust in the technology. And that only works if you are transparent and if you let people try. If you give them the tool in the hand, maybe even with the risk that they may fail, or produce some wrong results, and that's what we are here for, to take them by the hand and guide them on the journey. If we talk about the differences in terms of advanced analytics and AI, I would say the big difference is that Gen AI it's much simpler. So there's a saying from or a quote from a Tesla manager. He said, "English is the hottest new programming language." And I think that describes it very well. Everybody can really handle those tools. Big opportunity. On the other hand side, of course, also risks. So we of course have a huge risk of IP drain if we just blindly put our data into ChatGPT and OpenAI. So that's something we have to mitigate, particularly when we have a lot of experienced users who are not used to handle data. And I think this is where we have to create awareness, but also put technical controls on top. So one thing could be that, you're aware potentially about different kinds of orchestration layers that might help us to combine different models that can calculate and can do text. But that might be also a mitigation strategy in terms of IP drain. If you decompose prompts in a sensitive, non-sensitive part, but there are also mitigation measures to this. And in the end, coming back to my initial point and also to the presentation, it's about combining the domain know-how and the AI know-how to be able to successfully scale.
Absolutely. And Kurt, maybe just to throw similarly to you, now that you have accompanied numerous Dataiku customers around the globe, do you see any differences of that between the geographies, the territories? We heard from Deloitte, Germany is still somehow behind, but other than that?
There are some differences. That said, I think that the similarities are far greater than the differences. And I think it's easy to concentrate on the differences. Everyone is always looking, how do I measure up compared to the others in this other place? Who's ahead? Who's behind? It feels like a bit of an arms race. And I think it's important to play that down, that in fact, a lot of the challenges that we see in the United States, in other European countries, or in APJ, in the Asia Pacific and Japanese region, that in fact it's actually quite similar more often than not. Now, where there is a difference and where there are differences, I do see those as being related fundamentally to cultural issues or cultural aspects, cultural dimensions. often related to the appreciation of risk and risk tolerance, the way that risk is communicated, the way that different cultures will tend to treat negative risks versus, or the risk of action versus the risk of inaction. And I think it's kind of falls along classic lines. The Americans are often eager to jump in, say, let's give it a try. My calls with American customers in January of 2023, so nearly a year ago, was already, where's your roadmap on this? What are you doing? Why aren't you going faster? We're going full speed ahead on this, which was good. It got us moving at a certain speed. Whereas, of course, in other regions, things are a bit more cautious. Now, there's a lot to be said for being cautious and for being risk averse. There is a lot of value that comes from that. And of course, we don't want to do something and jump in too quickly to something which is going to be harmful or dangerous or otherwise going to be negative for our organization, the brand, the people that we employ, or the people that we serve. At the same time, of course, there's a cost to inaction, and I think that there is a risk that we saw from the slide from Philip from Deloitte. If Germany is truly that far behind everybody else in terms of their plans to use it, is it just a survey response question where we tend to say the German respondents may tend to say that they're further behind or more cautious? But I think that there is, judging by Rachel's facial expression, I think a reality as well of a hesitancy to move sometimes. And I do want to say that that can be a risk to the organization as well. I think what Dataiku is focused on, of course, is providing the framework in which that experimentation can be done safely, can be done securely, can be done in full respect, both of your internal IT policies, as well as with respect towards future AI regulation, which will be coming, to lower that perception of risk, and of course, hopefully the reality of risk as well, so that you can get started, can start trying things out quickly, in a safe way, in a responsible manner, which is ultimately what we hope for all of you. But I do think that there is a risk of also not acting, given that this is really a very promising technology with a lot of very clear applications in the enterprise.
So let's stay on risks actually for a second. Anastasia, you spoke in your keynote about risks. And how do you see risks actually evolving as AI is scaling through these organizations?
Actually, if you just keep this holistic enterprise perspective, so data augment everything we do in any company, independently of geography or industry. So it means that this data component should be an integral part of corporate risk management and operating risk, which, for example, comprises, are we on our own or do we work with third parties, right? In case we work with third parties, it might be a supplier providing some analog stuff, but it might be data supplier. Do they have a lot of open source? What does it mean for our ecosystem? Are we bringing some cyber exposure into our organization? And by the way, I'm really not arguing that we should stop it because it's unstoppable, but we need to be aware. And actually, increasing technology literacy, absence of technology literacy is a huge risk. This is something to pay attention to, and this is why I truly loved the journey of Munich Re. So actually, everyone is embarked to a certain extent on this journey. For some person, it might be limited amount of hours, but for another person, it might be really mastering Python and something else, and really augment the underwriting work with maybe coding, right? So we were talking during the break about small data. This is, for me, a huge journey. So, we are all talking about big data, but frankly, for me, we can't go even with hardware if we just do big data. So we must think about how do we harvest intelligence from small data? What does it mean for the hardware, for energy consumption, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is part of this operation framework and operating risk. And of course, regulatory compliance, paying attention to what is coming, and communication. This is within the overall framework. And then there's another component, and this is about value. So sometimes you generate IP, and you think, okay, it sits in this bucket, and then I harvest on it when I do X, Y, Z in terms of use cases. And then a new situation arises, and out of sudden, my IP is great for something else. And I discovered this, I mentioned this example in my keynote, when in 2011, there was a disastrous earthquake and tsunami devastating Japan. It was in March, and this is known that 25,000 people died within one day. But what is not known to the world that Japan stopped reporting data. And Japan is heavily embedded into the global economy. So not reporting data meant an earthquake in the supply chain. So financial markets knew the crisis from 2008. Then it was 2011, and everyone was like, oh, what is going to happen? So DNB, so my company back then, Dun & Bradstreet, decided to synthetically generate the whole data set of the Japanese economy. And there were 6 people, so not 100, not 1,000, 6 people without NVIDIA GPUs. And they said, okay, so what kind of questions do we ask? And they were not into geographical data, so the IP was remote computational interface. So this is what Dun & Bradstreet was famous for. Identity resolution of enterprises, remote computational interface. What does it mean? What do I see if something really is not in front of my eye like this? What do I do to see above a certain hurdle? And they applied this IP into a novel situation. And within 6 weeks, this data set was ready, and actually the error rate when Japan restarted reporting data was under 1%. Which is unbelievable. So they built within those 6 weeks an ecosystem of new providers of data. For example, a satellite company doing all kinds of images. So to look whether there was light during the nights and to decide is there an activity going on in a certain location or not. Or a crowd sourcing company was reporting data on radiation. And because, by the way, my favorite data scientists are physicists. So there was a physicist who was actually a nuclear scientist, and he knew how to read radiation data. So he could actually see what is the geology of the space and whether this reported data piece was right or wrong because of the humidity and whatever. So this is how they did it, novel situation, old IP, and out of this exercise, they generated even more IP, which is currently serving the company and which actually led to when we sold DNB. So the capital markets gave us 20% of premium initially. And the board said, we are going to actually include IP into valuation, and the premium was 36 at the end. So hard number, a huge impact due to this knowledge. And I can only encourage to try. And if something doesn't work, this is totally fine. We are still in very early days in the journey.
The risks don't stay the same. They diversify also as the AI scales as well. Thinking about risks, staying on this subject for another second, MJ, within your industry, it's highly regulated. And how is Roche kind of mitigating these risks within the industry?
Sure. So, I mean, of course, we have many different types of risk that have been discussed. And of course, it's going to be extremely difficult to go through all types.
Yeah, indeed.
But if you allow me, I just, highlight 2 of them and some of the actions that we take, like, risk mitigation actions to share with everyone. So the first one is actually about, the lack of human in the loop that Anastasia also mentioned in the keynote. And what we do is actually the following. So the first of all, we try to do our best to work very closely with the subject matter experts and incorporating their feedback as much as possible. And the sooner that you onboard those people into your AI initiatives, the better chance you have for the success. And the other thing is, I think at least these days, we are not 100% ready to replace human with the AI-based solutions. What we need to do is to look at those solutions as a decision support system, something that people can have a look and try to use it for making better decisions, but not to be the ultimate decision maker. So we can essentially help the expert community by providing them some additional material where they can make the right decision. That's my recommendation as well. The second category of risk that I would like to highlight is regarding that regulatory and compliance, especially in regulated industries such as healthcare, banking, and many other industries. again, two risk mitigation actions. One is it actually makes sense to work with those regulatory bodies to come up with the guidelines and governance model. Sometimes they don't know exactly about what it comes as a consequence of bringing a new technology. And we actually had a concrete example. I remember like 5 years ago, on one of the use cases that we were working on, it was very impactful and we wanted to bring it into a production. And then all of a sudden we recognized that, okay, so we need to have an approval from, the compliance team. And they didn't know, they had no idea about the AI-based solutions. So I'm very grateful to that gentleman, one of the senior leaders, and said, why not you're coming and helping us drafting something? And then we started that journey together. And a couple of years later, we have now a well-established framework. Everyone is using it. So sometimes it's also good that we work together with the regulatory and compliance team to come up with something that can help operationalizing things. And the other thing is also about, reproducibility and interpretability of the AI solutions. There is a whole field of XAI, which is explainable AI, and it's a very hot topic. And it should not be underestimated in terms of the importance. So make sure that we also leverage all the advances that we have in this field so that we can bring that interpretability because it is needed, especially for the regulated industries. You cannot just, have a black box and make a decision and you would expect that everyone says, yeah, perfect, let's just use it. So perhaps focusing more on the XAI field is also something practically we can take into account.
Can I add something to this?
Of course,
This is so important. And actually, for some reasons, some people believe explainable AI is to make slides and say compliance is important, and it's not because it's math. And the best AI ethicists are mathematicians. So, and this is actually investing into this. It's a real expenditure. So I don't know what is the right framework. Maybe you say X% of my EBITDA, 0.02, whatever, is to get invested into XAI. And this is something really long-term. And US has DARPA, which is with the Ministry of Defense, but this is a formidable organization. The amount of papers they produce on XAI is fantastic, right? Europeans don't have such a body, and we deeply need it because this is like the joint effort for the whole industry. Companies like NVIDIA, they are in hardware, but they have a technique which, for example, if you, in deep learning, they color certain pieces of model which contributes more to the solution. So because those are the nodes, right? And some are memorizing and some are generalizing. I'm simplifying right now. So what type of nodes are into kind of, pushing into this outcome, which is unseen because there might be 70 or 80 layers, right? Okay. And this is so important, and it's still quite a novelty.
Absolutely.
Great. It's a great tip too. I really like that, MJ, about the bringing some people. Oh no, compliance. Let's not tell them until we're done. But actually bringing them into the boat as well is extremely important. And Andreas, actually in the insurance space, in that industry, highly regulated as well. Anything to add other than what Anastasia and MJ have?
No, I can just confirm what the colleagues already said. So it's in insurance, you also make a very important and sensitive decision. Yeah, think about medical underwriting systems in life or health insurance. You have to proof point to the regulator why you make a certain decision. So, for example, why somebody doesn't get a certain life or health insurance, and in this respect, this explainability is definitely important. I hope that also in terms of generative AI, in the same speed that we develop the opportunities on the model side, that we also develop this explainability component, and then I think it really has a chance in industry adoption.
Excellent. So, Kurt, question for you. Getting out of risks now. What do you see? I mean, you've worked again with many customers. What do you see as kind of the technical steps that need to be taken when scaling AI? In comparison, also when thinking about Gen AI?
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of scaling, right, I think that the good news is there's already a lot of really great solutions out there already. The advent of cloud data lakes, like Snowflake, who has a presence here today, very close partner of Dataiku, is a huge part of that puzzle, right? I mean, I remember when I started, one of the main constraints on any of our data work was just getting the data storage and data compute power available for your work. That essentially is no longer a problem for organizations that have implemented a cloud data lake, which opens up incredible possibilities. Again, it was almost the main blocker previously, and now that's just gone, which is incredible. So there's almost that physical aspect of it, just getting access to the machines and having that just work, which in many cases is solved. Of course, not every workload can be moved or should be moved to the cloud, in which cases there's well-established practices for that, but many of them can and many of them should. So I think that's part of it. If we contrast that though with the challenge of scaling now AI and especially generative AI, we have the big difference that these models themselves are massive. The first L in LLM is of course large. They're extremely compute intensive, and so I think that's an area where we're still looking to see for those breakthroughs that we were hearing about earlier. That this is going to be an active area of research for making those models more efficient in terms of their execution, in terms of their training. So that's an area that that we're paying close attention to, because of course it's in the interest of all of our customers and the interest of Dataiku ourselves to support our customers in their ease of use of these very large models. So I think that's an area that is not solved yet, but I do think it's one of the next frontiers that we're going to see a lot of innovation on. We know it's already happening. There's a lot of wonderful startups out there exploring that space right now. Which technique, which approach is actually going to be the most valuable one, that's to be seen, but it's an area of very active research. So I think that's one of the areas that is different, is just the intensity of compute for these large language models.
Absolutely. Well, to conclude us and thinking now, looking forward, and going back to our 7 words, how would you say what the outlook looks like over the next 12 months when thinking about AI? Starting with you, Andreas.
Even though I'm German
Yeah, normally the words you can.
and work for a German company, I would expect that the benefits will outweigh the risks.
I think more trials, just more trials, and more noise, unfortunately, and unfortunately more slides.
So Rachel, you said like next how many months? 12.
12.
Oh, okay.
Months.
Because I wanted to say everyone will use AI every day,
That's
but I think
18
it's not
months.
going to happen. Yeah, but definitely having more advances and niche technologies. I mean, today we have LLM. Tomorrow we will have something else. So definitely we have more opportunities, definitely. And of course, more regulations, I would say. This is what I foresee.
Agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think not quite as good with the 7 this time, but I think that we'll be seeing ourselves getting out of, well, that's already a lot, getting out of experimentation and into production. Well, that was 7.
Okay.
I do anticipate, right, that the next 12 months we'll see that phase of moving a lot of these Gen AI use cases out of experimentation phase into production, at which point those lessons learned will then inform the scaling questions, which will come later. We've done this once. How do we now do it 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times?
Perfect. Great. Well, that was it. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.